So let me give you an example from an AOC. As part of this process that Kathy mentioned, we're establishing restoration indicators and targets to delist Muskegon Lake and White Lake. So we describe these indicators that we've established in a lot of detail with the caveats. And so the example I want to give to you is one acronym, BAP, biologically available phosphorus. This is the phosphorus that's in the water that the algae can take up. There's a lot of different forms of phosphorus, and I can tell you all about these caveats and watch your eyes glaze over, and I'm not going to do that. But there is one caveat I want to mention because it's important. We don't tell you these caveats because we want to bore you. We tell you this because we really do think it's important. So everybody knows phosphorus is a problem. Too much phosphorus, you get algal blooms. The form of phosphorus is critical because you can measure phosphorus, your biologically available phosphorus in the water column, and you can get very, very low amounts. And you say, cool, my lake is in good shape because it's very low. Well, the reason it might be very low is because all of that available phosphorus has been taken up in the algae, and you've got a big algal bloom going on in your lake. And the lake is not in good shape. So that's why we caveat these kinds of data. The public really isn't interested in the caveats, and they're not really interested in exactly what we're measuring or how we're measuring it. You want to know what the indicators tell you about the environment. And so as scientists, we need to step back and recognize that. So let me give you a way of one way we can do this. We have the indicator, we can tell you what it measures, we can tell you what it means, and we can tell you what it conveys about the environment instead of just giving you caveat after caveat. So for the example of biological available phosphorus now, I can tell you that it measures the phosphorus levels in the water column. I can tell you what it means. It provides information on the level of water pollution in your lake. And then what it conveys about the environment is there sufficient nutrient to stimulate an algal bloom? And that's information that the public can relate to. It means something to them. And so that's what scientists need to do. But having said that, I do want to make it clear that the obligation is not just on the scientists to communicate information clearly. There's also an obligation on the part of the public, whether it's the stakeholders, whether it's the journalists, or whether it's the elected officials. There is obligations involved in both sides, and I want to talk to you about that right now. Oh, here are the data. Here's biologically available phosphorus showing a very significant decline from 1972, before the wastewater was diverted to our wastewater management system. You can clearly see that there's a significant reduction, but in many cases, there's that question of uncertainty in the information, so sometimes we'll put statistics on top of this and that. And I'm not going to tell you what these actual numbers mean, but just let you know that in some cases we will throw statistics at you because it's important to know what our level of confidence is in these kinds of results. Scientists and their data can get politicized. And this often leads to public mistrust of scientists and the scientific process. So we need to be aware of this. The response or potential solutions are that we can't be naive about the situation as scientists. The public also needs to become better educated on issues. Instead of watching American Idol, watch Discovery Channel or something like that, or read the appropriate journals, read the appropriate magazines. And we need to focus on good science. Now, I alluded to what people thought good science was at the beginning, science that backs up their own position. Now, let me tell you what a scientist defines as good science. There are two benchmarks. The science withstands the rigors of peer review, and the results that are generated must be reproducible. That is the definition of good science. Now, sometimes that science goes against what the prevailing opinion is, but if you're a good scientist, if you're a scientist with credibility and with rigor, you're going to make sure that your results stand up in the face of that, no matter how much people don't want to hear it. And I can give you a very poignant example for me. I got vilified in the press last year for talking about groundwater extraction from Ice Mountain and talking about the kind of information we're trying to generate for the state for a water withdrawal assessment tool. And the data clearly indicate that there can be some withdrawals in some types of systems without having an adverse natural resource impact. Nobody wanted to hear that. Nobody. And so it was difficult to say the science indicates that we can do this. So let me move on. That's my first one. So science education needs improvement. We need a more scientifically literate public. Some of that is the responsibility of scientists. Some of it's the responsibility of the school system. And some of it is your responsibility. Public expectations of science should be realistic. we sometimes don't have enough money, we don't have enough time to get all the answers. So there's going to be uncertainty in the information that we generate. And you have to understand that. This isn't magic. I mean, this takes time and it's a process. Journalists should become better informed. Dave makes a great point that developing a relationship with a journalist takes time. It's something you cultivate and nurture. But the journalists also have a responsibility to become as well informed as possible, not just have scientists spoon-feed them information or nut graphs. And that scientists operating in public arenas shouldn't be punished for delivering evidence that may conflict with politics or the prevailing public opinion. So, a couple of quotes with apologies to Mark Twain. Politicians often use science the way drunkards use a signpost, more for support than illumination. Having said that, in all honesty, I want to give credit where credit is due. Jerry has come to speak to me. He comes to meet with me one-on-one on the issue so he becomes better informed. There is no other elected official that serves at the state level in Muskegon that's done that, Democrat or Republican, to become better informed on these issues. So I give credit to Senator Van Workum. Congressman Hoekstra has also come to meet with me one-on-one, and I appreciate that. Now, hopefully they get information that they can use as a consequence. And one of my favorite quotes, this is from Peter Glick, a well-known water ecologist. He said, it's very difficult to make good public policy without good science, but it's even harder to make good public policy with bad science. And so again, this gets back to the fact that we need good science. And then finally, some lessons learned in working in the AOCs, and this has generalization to all scientists working in the media or in the public arena. We need to engage the public early in the process, all right? And it has to be a continuing relationship. The public has to understand that science helps to inform, but it's not the ultimate answer. We give the best information we have to our elected officials, and that's where policy is made. All right? And we need to step back and recognize that that too is a process. And that science communication is an ongoing